Welcome everyone to the governance and stakeholder topic of this online course on freshwater health. This is the third subtopic in the governance and stakeholder topic, and it focuses on capacity. Specifically, we will consider what determines the potential of the governance system to achieve freshwater health. My name is Uta Rehn and I'm Associate Professor of Water Innovation Studies at IHE Delft in the Netherlands. IHE Delft is offering this online course in collaboration with Conservation International, which, like us, is working to preserve and restore freshwater health around the world. In the previous topic, we considered the context in which freshwater is being governed. Knowing the context helps us to locate the boundaries of relevant human and ecological systems, and to identify stakeholders and institutions that are part of the governance system. But what do the results of the context analysis mean for freshwater management in practice? What do we have compared to what we need to implement a freshwater plan? Is the system capable of implementing a freshwater plan? Is the system prepared to implement a freshwater plan? So let's start off with a challenge question for you. Think about your basin and then recall the 12 areas of governance proposed by the OECD Water Governance Principles Framework. Which of these 12 areas are likely well organized already in your basin, and which ones may present a weakness? And with these strengths and weaknesses in mind, do you think the organizations and systems around you are well prepared to implement a freshwater health plan or not? Please take your time and note down your responses, and when you're ready, continue, press play. The multiple actors involved in water management emphasize the nature of and the need for effective governance of water management. Management and the monitoring that is needed for management are embedded in the water governance cycle. You can see that cycle illustrated on the right, which starts with the formulation of policies and strategies, are then implemented through a range of prescribed actions. This implementation is monitored using various indicators, and using the results of the monitoring, gaps are assessed and new instruments or improvements can be devised to bridge the gap, leading to the formulation of changed or new policies and strategies. So OECD Water Governance Indicator Framework is one of several frameworks, and we use it here as an example. In fact, the Freshwater Health Index uses elements of the OECD framework, but it doesn't look exactly like the example shown here. The OECD Water Governance Indicator Framework was developed within the OECD Water Governance Initiative through a bottom-up and multi-stakeholder approach during the years 2015 to 2017, and it was actually pilot tested by 11 institutions at different scales and also in different geographic and socioeconomic contexts. It provides a voluntary multi-stakeholder self-assessment tool to understand the performance of water governance systems, be that in a city, basin, regional, or at national scales. The primary objective of this approach is to stimulate a transparent, neutral, open, inclusive, and forward-looking dialogue across stakeholders on what works, what does not work, what should be improved, and who can do what. The Water Governance Indicator Framework is intended to be applicable across governance scales, local, basin, national, etc., but also across water functions, water resources management, water services provisioning, hydropower, water disaster risk reduction. The framework is composed of a traffic light system based on 36 input and process indicators, and also a checklist of broader governance conditions. It concludes with an action plan to prepare and prioritize actions over the short, medium, and long run. It comes with a comprehensive self-assessment toolkit, and it is based on a sound multi-stakeholder approach for gathering information. That is done through a survey as well as consensus workshops and discussions rather than a standardized reporting, monitoring, or benchmarking perspective. That is the case because governance responses to common water challenges are highly contextual and place-based. The traffic light system aims to appraise the existence and level of implementation of the framework conditions of the water governance system in place, the expected changes over time in the water governance system, and the level of consensus on the assessment made by the stakeholders. So for each of the 12 principles, this results in an assessment as shown on the right. So we can say that this is a very helpful approach for assessing the current situation of water governance performance in a given country, basin, etc. However, it is rather comprehensive and resource intensive. So as an alternative, we can consider the generic elements of systemic capacity and then customize these for our assessment of capacity for freshwater management. The elements of systemic capacity consist of what we call nested layers of capacity. So that is the capacity of individual professionals, of organizations, of the enabling environment, and civil society. And as you can see in the figure, institutional capacity encompasses actually 2 layers, organizational capacity and the enabling environment. So let's consider in turn what capacity we need and what we have at each level for freshwater management. So let's start with individual competencies and skills of water professionals. These are the people who will actually implement freshwater measures. What skills and competencies do they have and what do they need? And here it's really important to underline that the common assumption is that key for managing freshwater is technical knowledge about freshwater systems. Yes, that is the case, but it's not the only thing. There are other key aspects that are part or should be part of the job description. And these are things such as the ability to participate in and facilitate complex multi-stakeholder processes, because that's where freshwater management takes place, to negotiate an interagency collaboration and secure political buy-in for specific measures, to keep up with a large and fast evolving interdisciplinary body of knowledge that is really required to manage freshwater, and to deal with wicked problems that really cut across lots of domains, responsibilities, and to deal with value-based decisions rather than fact-based. Moving on to organizational capacity. Organizations are, of course, made up of people. So when we talk about organizational capacity, on the one hand, we talk about the place where water professionals work and the extent to which they're able to bring to bear their skills within the current processes and hierarchies that exist in any given organization. So this is determined then, amongst other things, by the routines and procedures that may be in place to ensure that state-of-the-art knowledge is being applied. The same routines and procedures can also be restricting, and they also need to be updated regularly to make sure they're based on latest insights and best practices. Knowledge management is also an important aspect of organizational capacity because this can help capture and codify expert knowledge in a number of ways. And a key method is mentoring of junior professionals by senior staff. Incentives and also room for innovation determine organizational capacity as well, because they set the conditions for retaining and really exploring the talent of freshwater professionals in dealing with various freshwater challenges. Last but not least, organizational capacity also consists of the relational capital of an organization with other relevant organizations and actors in the governance system, say For example, the relations of a river basin organization with non-governmental organizations, with water authorities and other relevant organizations in the basin. Let us pause for another challenge question for you. So managing complex natural resource systems requires collaboration. It's also based on knowledge from a range of disciplines. So please think again about your own organization. Do you have a knowledge management system and access to data and information from various fields? Is it easy for you to engage with other authorities and organizations, or are there strict procedures to protect hierarchies and jurisdictions? And are you encouraged by your management to collaborate with other organizations? Is it recognized as something positive in your performance reviews? Please take your time, note down your responses, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Let's turn to the enabling environment. The enabling environment is the context within which organizations function. So is this context really enabling? Do current laws and policies allow freshwater managers and organizations to do what needs to be done? Can they rely on competent partners in their environment? Are there local or national educational institutions and R&D organizations that actually help train freshwater professionals and help generate relevant local knowledge and innovation? And are the political priorities supportive of freshwater management, or do other issues dominate the political agenda? These are all aspects that determine the enabling environment. And as a concrete example, let's turn back to what you have already come across in topic 1, namely the Water Framework Directive in the European context. The Water Framework Directive was a move to integrate multiple disconnected directives, to harmonize these policies, and in the European context, it's really a key aspect of the enabling environment of freshwater management in Europe. Member states are obliged by this directive to take action to achieve the environmental objectives, for example, cyclical management plans, structures for monitoring, stakeholder consultation, addressing pollutants, and so forth. The specific actions that these member states have to take are not defined. Each member state can choose their own way to implement a program of measures, as long as all these aspects are covered. So, in other words, the Water Framework Directive forces countries to create that enabling environment for planning and implementing water management plans. Now, the final layer in the capacity system is the layer of civil society. This considers societal capacity in terms of the extent to which the general public support freshwater management, and the capacity of civil society to manage freshwater health is made up of a number of elements. These include local culture, customs, and social practices. So how water is perceived, valued, and used, and that really depends strongly on the respective local, socioeconomic, and physical conditions, as you can see in the examples on this slide. Water literacy refers to the general awareness and understanding of the public of how water for daily use is delivered and treated, the quality and safety of that water, and why saving water is important. Also, water literacy entails knowing about ways in which water can be conserved and compliance with limitations and regulations. There are also innovative ways coming up for strengthening water literacy and strengthening the capacity of civil society to monitor, to understand, and to take care of freshwater resources. These include citizen science and community-based monitoring of water resources. We will actually look at these developments in more detail in subtopic number 6 of this series. So, by means of summarizing, in this subtopic of capacity, we have considered different levels of the capacity system. Freshwater management relies on capacity at each level, and also these levels are closely interconnected and influence each other. So lack of capacity at organizational level, for example, in the form of adverse incentives, can lead to brain drain of well-educated professionals to other sectors. We have seen that people are key as capacity holders, but they are not the only ones. The institutions, organizational rules and procedures, relations with other organizations, and policies and legislative frameworks in the enabling environment are also important cornerstones of the capacity system. To design and implement freshwater management plans, capacity across different levels and in different organizations is key. So in the next topic, we will look in more detail at the role of people and stakeholders in freshwater governance. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.